What's going on, everybody? It's the Variety Film Brothers. I'm Andrew.
I'm Thomas.
And in today's video, we're going to be talking about Iron Man, the very first movie in the MCU. That's right, we can't even finish Star Wars before moving on to another series. But in our defense, it's called Variety Film Brothers for a reason. And literally 95% of our videos right now are Star Wars.
We're Not much variety in that.
Exactly, trying to actually bring the variety a little bit. I've seen this movie very many times. I have an Iron Man shirt. Tony Stark is my favorite MCU character, so it's going to be hard to talk about this movie objectively. Just overall, what did you think of it?
I thought it's pretty good.
Pretty good.
I always liked Iron Man.
Right.
But, after watching it again, after probably like a year of not watching it, it's still really good.
I think this is like the best origin story movie of the MCU. And this movie is something that, now that I think about it, we see it in a lot of MCU movies, non-linear storytelling. And I think a lot of movies kind of just do that for no reason, kind of just to like artificially make the movie more interesting. But I think it works a lot better in this movie. Like if it would have just started out with the scene of Tony like at the awards or not being at the awards and you know gambling instead, I mean you would get a pretty good sense of his character, and that is like the second or third scene, so you still get that pretty quick. But I think the way the movie presents the scenes, I think it's really fresh in a way, because like I don't think a whole lot of superhero movies did that before, and this is like, you know, being the first movie of the MCU, I think, you know, it wants to show that this isn't just like every other superhero movie that you guys have already seen. So after Tony gets kidnapped and taken to the cave, I love the scene where we see him like rip the shirt and see the the prototype arc reactor in there. I love that it doesn't look cool. Like the later arc reactor looks cool, obviously, you know, like it glows and everything. But this one, like, it just straight up looks like a car part is just like shoved into his chest, and it's really freaky.
Also has a big wire attached to a car battery.
Right. The one thing that bothers me about like the cave stuff is, and we were talking about this, is that they really don't watch him too closely. Like they have a couple cameras set up in there, and when he starts to be a little suspicious, like they might go check on him. They literally see him move his leg, and they're just like, I don't think that's the missile, guys. I'm willing to kind of let some of that slide. Obviously, it doesn't ruin the movie for me. Obviously, I love it. And then that leads us to the building the Mark I suit scene, which is iconic. We used the word iconic several times when talking about this movie, because that's what it is. It starts the MCU off really, really strong. Like, imagine if the MCU started with the Incredible Hulk. I mean, like,
I would cry.
We'd still have Iron Man just a couple months later, but still, I think that would really turn a lot of people off to it. But yeah, the Mark I building scene, it's so great. Like, everyone can recall that scene.
With the hammer Tony.
And like,
hammering the middle.
And they literally have that at the very end of Avengers Endgame. Like, they don't have a post-credit scene for Endgame, but at the very end of the credits, you hear the hammer clanging sounds. Yeah. And it's so cool, man. And it's also kind of symbolic of Tony, like, forging his, like, new self, like, his new personality, too. So it's just cool on a lot of levels. But also the Mark I, it's kind of a scary-looking suit.
Oh, yeah.
It's not like, you don't look at it and immediately think, oh, that's cool. Oh, that's, like, you know, that, like, I want an action figure of that or something. Like, you see that at the end of a dark cave.
Yeah.
And that's gonna scare the shit out of you. Like, I know I would. I would shit myself, probably. And Tony just does not show any of these guys mercy.
Yeah, if I was one of those guys with the guns and see that, I'd be like, nope. Whenever the laptop was shown a full power,
like the shot stays on the laptop, and I think it goes in a little bit as the lights go out, and it's just,
and then you hear
it's just really cool. Like you don't know exactly what's about to go down, but something's about to go down. But the actual escape from the cave scene, you really feel the weight of every like punch that he throws someone, or the flamethrowers. You feel like the weight of those, which we talked about were partially practical, and which is just super cool to me. You can tell they really put a lot of care and effort into this, and I wish we got to see that in later, in She-Hulk, but really just in later movies with Iron Man, because as we'll see when we get to Age of Ultron, just like everything else in Age of Ultron, the Iron Man suit is terrible. Not from a design standpoint. From a design standpoint, it looks cool, because like there's really not very many ways you can make Iron Man not cool. But like the CG in this movie for Iron Man is probably the best it ever is in the MCU, maybe except for the first Avengers movie or Iron Man 2. But the point is, not too far after this, it really goes downhill.
This movie's 14 years old. This has better CGI than She-Hulk. That's
See, I
90%
hate to like dogpile She-Hulk because like a lot of people are giving it a rough time. And is it the worst thing in the MCU?
Yeah, probably.
No, I don't think it is.
Really?
She-Hulk?
I mean,
She-Hulk's not the worst
I think
thing
for
in
the
the MCU.
CGI thing though. For
Oh,
CGI.
is the CGI the worst?
I mean,
the worst like example of CGI in the
Yeah.
MCU? Yeah, probably. I was just talking about like on an overall quality
I just meant the
level.
CGI.
No, yeah, the CGI is the worst. I'll give you that every day of the week.
Yinsen, R.I.P.
They really do a good job of making you care for Yinsen like really quick, because the thing about Tony Stark at the beginning is like even when he's captured in the cave, he's still unlikable.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, he tries to do the right thing and refuse making the missile, but he's still himself, so he's still kind of just a dick.
Mhm.
But Yinsen is a really good guy.
Yeah.
So like for like the first probably 30 minutes of the movie, he's like the only good guy,
Mhm.
like good person that you actually see. So when he bites it, it's really sad. And I like the little misdirect of like he wants to see his family, and then it turns out, oh, they
Died.
yeah, they're all gone. It's pretty simple. I'm not gonna say it's like a super like big twist or anything like that,
Mhm.
but it does get you. It does really make you care for the character really fast. So when Tony gets back, that whole speech that he has where he decides to change the entire prospect of his company, that's a really good scene for him.
Mhm.
And it also kind of goes a little bit more into like, you know, Tony says, I never got to say goodbye to my father. And obviously later in the MCU, that's something we'll learn more about, is how exactly his father was murdered and all that. You can really see like the shock in Tony still when he gives that speech.
Mhm.
Like you can tell he's still running through the events in his head when he says, I saw young Americans killed by the very weapons I designed to protect them. You can tell he still has the memories of that playing in his head. RDJ is a really good actor,
Yeah.
and I'm so glad that this movie and Jon Favreau took a risk on him, because
Mhm.
I couldn't imagine anyone else playing the role. Like we said, it's like one of those roles like Deadpool, Black Panther, who like you really just couldn't see anybody else in the role. Even if like someone else might be an objectively better actor, they bring so much of themselves into the role that it's just like
Mhm.
it's basically owned by them. But this is like where you really start to see like Tony's like determination to really fix all the stuff that he's done.
Mhm.
Earlier we were talking about how you could really have a good conversation about the military from this movie. It actually poses a lot of interesting questions, like, is it good to make weapons? Is it bad to make weapons? Is it, you know, is it ethical to make so many weapons? You know, like there's a lot of things you can talk about, and it doesn't don't tell us in the comments like whether like what side of that agreement you're wanting to stand on. I'm not trying to start a political discussion. I'm just saying I think you have a really good movie on your hands when you can have these political discussions from it. More about like Tony's, you know, change of heart is that like I really don't like how Rhodey reacts to it,
Mhm.
because like obviously Obadiah, he's like the bad guy, and I don't think he's a very interesting one at that, to be honest. But obviously he's not gonna like it because he's just in it for the money. But
Mhm.
Rhodey's like, hey man, I liked you better when you were making guns, man.
Hey, listen, it's just a trauma. You get over it.
At that point, he and Rhodey are already supposed to be really good friends, so it just kind of bothers me a little bit that Rhodey's kind of that shallow. I think the next scene after that is when we see Tony working on the armor some more. They put so much detail into both the CGI and the practical armor pieces. I mean, like not even just the full suits, just like the parts. Like when he's working on the boot, and like there's just so many little like moving pieces,
Mhm.
and like pieces that are like blowing out exhaust and things like that. And then the arm piece, which is practical too.
Mhm.
You know, all the wires and like the actual illuminating pieces. It's so cool, man. And like I just don't feel like that much care gets put into MCU props, or really even a lot of movie props anymore. You know, and I mean in a way that's good because we get more Marvel content, but sometimes I think as a result it really just doesn't get to be as good
Mhm.
as earlier MCU projects like this.
I would much rather have one really good movie or show versus 5 decent movie or show.
I have to agree.
Set aside.
The determination on Tony in this movie, it's so well acted, and it shows like such good development for him. Like there are so many lines that he has in this movie that are just really good. I really like when he says there is the next mission and nothing else, and it
Mhm.
shows where his priorities are now, and he's really trying to make it right. And also like his where he says, I shouldn't be alive unless it was for a reason. He was like, I'm not crazy, Pepper. I just finally know what it is I have to do,
Mhm.
and I know in my heart that it's right.
Yeah.
And it's a little on the nose, sure, but like you have someone who's just like fundamentally started to turn their life around completely.
Yeah.
And like, like this is probably the first time he's ever even had a sense of what to do in his heart. So he doesn't even really know how to articulate it very well, I think. And it's really powerful because like you don't have to be Tony Stark to know how it feels to want to change a fundamental aspect of your life, to recognize something in your life that maybe you're doing wrong or that you just don't want to be a part of anymore, and to be like, I have this such strong conviction to make myself better. I think a lot of people can relate to that. But we've gotten a little bit off topic. I mean, not really, but we got off our notes. But with all the good things we've talked about Tony, I think it really pulls away from Obadiah because Obadiah is a really bland character in this movie. I mean, Jeff Bridges is a really good actor, but like they don't really give him much to work with here. And Obadiah, he's kind of just a mean, intimidating guy. And that's really all there is to his character, unfortunately. But I mean, I don't think the movie suffers too much from it. I have to bring up the iconic line, Tony Stark was able to build this in a cave with a box of scraps. It's just too iconic, and of course Spider-Man had to bring that back.
Yeah. Like, why are you mad at Spider-Man for that? He wasn't even there. Just blame.
Yeah, like you mean Tony? Like, why was he mad at Tony for that?
Yeah, Tony.
Yeah, like that doesn't make any sense to me either. They definitely didn't think that out too well. By the way, bye if you want to sponsor us. I'll be waiting for your email. Get on that.
Yeah.
Because we average about 30 views per variety discussion. That could be 30 more buys sold. Just something to think about. I think the biggest problem with Obadiah really comes out in the third act, like the final battle, when it really becomes apparent that the movie does not really know what Obadiah's motivations are. Because really it's only ever established that he wants the company, which is such a generic motivation as it is. Like, it's just not really that relatable. I mean, yeah, sometimes you'll see someone else with something that you want. You're not going to create this huge plot to, like, kill someone and, like, take over their life because, you like their car or something. You know what I mean?
Arc reactor,
So
pull it out of their chest and yank it out. No.
Yeah, so, like, I mean, there's some good scenes with him. Like the scene where he takes the arc reactor, I think is a good scene. But, like, the fact that he just, like, starts killing people is so crazy. Because, like, he's got to be thinking, hey, there's no way I'm going to be able to lead a company, like, after committing mass murder. I understand there has to be a big final battle. I mean, the fight itself is okay.
Can we talk about how slow?
We can talk about how slow his flight is. Like, somehow he catches up to Tony, even though he's flying at, like, maybe a third of the speed.
I mean, you can just say that Tony's battery was really
we'll just say Tony was low on battery.
Because if he was at 100%, he would just be
he would have just, like, gone through, like, the stratosphere.
If you solve the ice problem, what ice problem? I really want Dr. Mike to do a Marvel Injuries video.
I don't know how he hasn't already. This movie would provide a lot of really good content for that.
I would like to know how the bomb, like, pieces got into his chest and how critical would that be? Because it did say that...
It said he had, like, a week before it would kill him. But I don't know how realistic that is. And something I also noticed is that he was wearing a protective vest.
Yeah.
So that was actually the first time I noticed that.
Also, whenever he flew out of the suit and lost his power and fell on sand, on solid sand, and he was perfectly fine. He was like...
We were talking about that, too, because, like, if that was water, like, that would hurt. Like, if it wouldn't kill him, it would hurt. And sand, I mean, it's more dense than water, right? It's gotta be.
Yeah.
We're getting everybody money today.
Yeah.
You're welcome, Dr. Mike. You're welcome. Bye. Okay, we'll stop. We'll stop plugging products that don't even sponsor us. Dude, we didn't rate this movie out of 100.
Oh no.
We totally forgot about that. So what would you rate this movie out of 100?
92.
That's a good score.
92.
I think I would give it a 91. So we're like right in the same boat there. It's just such a good movie. It's shot well, it's acted well. And I know this doesn't inherently make a movie better, but caring about a movie, it helps me to like it more because I just love film so much. And I also want to mention that I took film class in college and they talk about this movie. There's a couple, like, screenshots of this movie in there, and I just think that's cool. I just think that's cool that, like, there can be superhero movies that are good enough to be called, like, films, even if they're a little bit, comic booky, obviously. The I Am Iron Man scene, the first time he says that, referenced perfectly in Avengers Endgame, and I kind of have some negative thoughts about Avengers Endgame, but we'll get that when we get all the way to it. But it's so good here.
Yeah.
It's so good. It's such a perfect way to end the movie because it's just like, you know, once again, we've got this movie breaking the norm for superhero movies. Because at this point, the really big superhero movies at the time, you know, like the Dark Knight trilogy and the original Spider-Man movies, they're all about superheroes who keep their identity super secret. So this movie ending with, you know, Tony just completely revealing his identity, like it's pretty cool, especially for the time. I guess it's not technically the very end of the movie. The very end of the movie is the scene with Nick Fury, in which we kind of get, you know, the tease for the Avengers, which is now obviously very old news. Very old news. We've had 4 Avengers films at this point, and they've confirmed 2 more. That was a big deal back then. It's easy to forget, because like they had never done a team-up superhero movie before. Like, the fact that they were willing to like really set it up right, and make, like, there were 5 films before the Avengers. And so, like, they were really taking their time to, like, establish these characters. A mistake that the DCEU would make with their Justice League movie, not even giving half of their characters movies before that. Do you think we'll ever cover the DCEU? I really don't see that for us.
It is variety film.
It is variety film, brothers. So we do have to talk about things we don't like. But yeah, this movie, it's so good, man. It does so many new things for the time. And it doesn't feel like Marvel movies of today. Like, there's a big difference between Phase 1 and Phase 4. And, like, I get it's, you know, obviously the earlier movies are going to be more simple. They're going to be a lot less complicated. But I really kind of miss that about it. And, like, we can still have movies in the MCU that are more complicated, you know, like Thor Ragnarok. I'd say Thor Ragnarok is really weird, but it's still really good. But I think that just about covers everything. I know we said that the next video before this was going to be Empire Strikes Back, but as I said, we're taking a little bit of a break from Star Wars. Not too long, because we know that's probably always what our main audience is going to be, since we have, you know, a Star Wars short film up, and we are working on another Star Wars short film, so we're always going to have a huge Star Wars portion of our audience. But, you know, we wanted to obviously do a variety of things, hence the name. If we wanted to just talk about Star Wars at the time,
Star Wars Brothers.
Star Wars Brothers. See, that doesn't even work. All right, thank you guys so much for watching our video. Please be sure to check out our Star Wars variety discussions that we've done so far, as well as our first Star Wars short film. If you can if you can call it a short film, it's like
a tease.
It's a tease. But yeah, please be sure to check all that out. Give us a like,
comment, and subscribe.
And we will see you guys in the next one.
Peace. I listen.